So how many of you noticed that the Ner Tamid was not on at the beginning of the service? See? It's called the Ner Tamid, the eternal lamp. Now, eternal lamp doesn't mean it doesn't go off. It means that we can always rekindle it. Can always rekindle it. In all the 40-some years that I have been here, I have no idea where the switch for that lamp is. So, Mr. President, you're not going to introduce me tonight? For Rosh Hashanah, he introduced me. I guess he figures that people already know me from last week. You know, over the years, I have received many nice remarks and even some backhanded compliments about my sermons. Someone once told me, "Rabbi, every sermon you give is better than the next." And someone else urged me to publish a collection of my sermons. I said, perhaps posthumously. He said, the sooner the better. Tonight's sermon will be different from Rosh Hashanah's. Last week I spoke at a personal level. Tonight I wish to address us as a collective. Moses' last speech to the Israelites before they entered the Promised Land began with the words, Vezot habracha. This is the blessing. I am not Moses, yet like him I am completing my years with you. And as Moses did for the tribes of Israel, allow me to review where we are and my hopes for the future. This is my blessing. It would be easy to look around our world with imminent threats to democracy, to the survival of the planet, to the security of our freedoms, and paint a dark picture of the future. The pandemic has unleashed many other viruses. Polarizing political and religious ideologies strain the moral center. Disagreement leads to demonization. Ideologies confound ideas. Many issue dire warnings, coupling global fears with alarm for the Jewish people. A rise in anti-Semitism, the scapegoating of Israel, declining synagogue membership. Naive optimism would tell us all will be well. Stop worrying. Pessimism would say all is collapsing, there is nothing to be done. But realism, and I'm a realist, would say nothing is certain, all is possible, and the future depends on us. Decades ago, the great American scholar Simon Ravidovich wrote an essay entitled Israel, the Ever-Dying People. It was about how we Jews tend to think of ourselves as being constantly on the verge of ceasing to be. He noted that there is hardly a generation in the diaspora that did not consider itself the final link in Israel's chain. Ravidovich decried this tearful approach to history and encouraged us to assume responsibility for ensuring the future, as generations before, often in more dire conditions, had done. So following the revelations of the 1990 National Jewish Population Survey, the most comprehensive demographic study of Jews, Many leaders panicked about American Jewish continuity. Growing assimilation, increased intermarriage, a diminishing Jewish population, changing attitudes towards Israel led some to warn that American Jews were in danger of disappearing. But to the contrary, recent surveys show that 7.6 million American people identify as Jews, 35% increase since 1990. The causes for that increase include immigration from the former Soviet Union and the influx of converts and children of intermarriage who bring renewal to Jewish communal life and religion. New studies also find that 80% of American Jews regard caring about Israel as essential or important to being Jewish. Remembrance of the Holocaust and working for justice remain integral components of contemporary Jewish identity. And yet, there are issues and concerns we need to address. The pandemic has impacted on our sense of community. Live stream and Zoom Judaism serve a purpose and meet the real needs of many in our communities, but they cannot become the default way of Jewish living. We need to reconnect with the synagogue. Even as we remain attentive to health protocols, let us remember, as you have experienced tonight, that nothing replaces a heartfelt handshake, a hug, a kiss, a community meeting, face to face. Apathy, lack of connection, vicarious Jewish living, breakdown of communal norms are present threats. A la carte, privatized boutique spirituality, mail order rabbis, feel-good mitzvah point religion will not sustain us. The synagogue and the organized Jewish community need to cooperate, and we need to invest treasure and time and talent, of which we lack none, in creating meaningful experiences of welcoming, of hospitality, of engagement, or we will lose Jews and weaken the fabric of Jewish belonging. But there is more to Judaism than belonging. Unless we cultivate and teach a faith that is intellectually credible and spiritually uplifting, we will lose Jews who decide that all religion, including Judaism, is infantile, a numbing analgesic, a perilous anesthetic. My teacher, Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, warned, and I quote, "An intelligent and instructed laity is as indispensable for the teaching of sound religion as for the practice of sound medicine. For the lack of such a laity, various kinds of religious quackery are peddled around and bought up at bargain prices." Towards the end of his journey, Moses counsels the Israelites that the teaching that he has imparted, and I quote from the book of Deuteronomy, "is not in the heavens, that you should say, 'Who will go up for us to heavens and bring it to us that we may hear it and do it?' Neither is it beyond the seas," says Moses, "that you should say, 'Who will go over the sea and bring it to us that we may hear it and do it?' But the word is very, very near to you. It is in your mouth. It is in your heart to do it." Torah, my friends, is not a supernatural mandate God reveals to Israel, but it is the ways and the wisdom of life that Israel, in our quest for God, discover and create. Torah is not the last word. It is the first word of our ongoing journey. We are called the people of the book. Yet many of our otherwise educated adults know more about other books than their own. If Jewish learning stops at the religious school level, Judaism remains forever an adolescent identity. Qualifying for Jewish leadership entails continued Jewish literacy. Belief and belonging need to be ensured by behaviors. Tradition is not just something that we receive, but something that we enhance, create, and transmit. The ancient rabbis taught the Torah is not an inheritance. Each generation must learn it anew. Religion is more than nostalgia and sentimentality. So let us ensure that the synagogue is not a museum of obsolete practices or a mausoleum of outdated beliefs, but a laboratory of the Jewish experience, a sanctuary of renewal, a workshop of innovation and of hope. Judaism is not only what we do as Jews or with Jews. Rudyard Kipling quipped, "What do they know of England who only know England?" Being Jewish is the way we engage our total humanity and our common humanity. It is the way in which we grow as human beings and with human beings. Even as we need to be attentive to the needs of Jewish community, the texture of our American democracy is fraying. The foundations of the Enlightenment upon which this nation was built are being questioned. Science is under attack. Reason is suspect. Truth is denied. Ideologies of right and of left that place religious dogma and tribe ahead of equality and freedom are eroding our sense of citizenship and of shared purpose. Autocracy is on the rise worldwide. The United States ranks below New Zealand, Costa Rica, Switzerland, Canada, Japan, in surveys measuring the stability of our democratic institutions and practices. The preservation of our constitutional democracy is essential to American and to Jewish survival and vitality. Wherever autocracy has reigned, Jews have suffered. Wherever chauvinism has triumphed, Jews have become scapegoats. So as Jews, we have an obligation to a common human agenda. Environmental challenges, gun violence, economic disparities, racial and social inequality, restrictions on reproductive rights and health care, clamor for our attention. This work among ourselves and with our neighbors constitutes our unfinished agenda as Americans and as Jews. As a result of the ruptures and discontinuities of the past years, we are living through what some refer to as a new inflection in history that will require imaginative solutions and the full throttle of our individual and collective wills. This is not a time for timidity and pessimism, neutrality or discouragement. This is a time for renewal and idealism, for pragmatism and innovation. From the beginning of our ancestral stories, being Israel has meant to wrestle and to wrest a blessing from life's challenges and opportunities. And so we affirm beyond our nation's borders our solidarity with Israel. Like all countries, Israel is not perfect. Israel is an independent, self-critical, democratic nation in a region that is a seabed of autocracy and terrorism. Israel is both a refuge and a dream, a complex reality, and a challenging political entity. While her sovereignty and security are non-negotiable, Israel serves herself best as it continues to normalize coexistence with its Arab citizens, its Palestinian neighbors, and the region, as it has begun to do through the Abrahamic Accords. Israel needs also to normalize its relationship with world Jewry. The stranglehold of ultra-Orthodoxy and of right-wing religious nationalism chokes Israeli citizens and erodes its relationship with the diaspora. Zionism is reciprocal. It is our care and support for Israel, but also Israel's care and respect for the Jews and Jewish life in the diaspora. The recent artful address of Israel's Prime Minister Yair Lapid before the United Nations outlined a vision of an Israel that is proud and prosperous, a nation that chooses, as he said, not to be a victim, to dwell not on the pain of the past, but on the hope of the future. Prime Minister Lapid spoke of an Israel that is vibrant, a democracy in which Jews, Muslims, and Christians live with full civic equality, where government coalitions include an Arab party. Israel has Arab ministers, diplomats, judges, doctors, authors, beauty queens, pop singers. Yet he acknowledged that there is work to be completed, and the Prime Minister responsibly committed his nation to undertake it. As he said, an agreement with the Palestinians based on 2 states for 2 peoples. It'll take time, but it cannot be delayed. Prime Minister Lapid prophetically observed, and I quote again, "Peace is not a compromise. Peace is not weakness. Peace is the victory of all that is good." He reminded his neighbors, and a world yet filled with anti-Zionist rhetoric and anti-Semitic hate, we are not going anywhere. The Middle East is our home. Our hand is outstretched for peace. So as American Jews, we support and partner with Israel, and we will oppose those who seek to weaken or destroy her, from within or from without, from the right or from the left. We have an obligation to teach our children who were born long after the exhilarating experience of the creation of the Jewish state the meaning of Israel to the Jewish people. They need resources, experiences to respond to the hate that is being directed singularly against the Jewish state. Recently, a college town congregation decided to take the word Israel out of its liturgy so that they no longer recite Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, but Shema Ami, hear, my people. Israel, the term, has become for some an offensive word of opprobrium. Many Jewish college students hesitate to speak of their support of Israel for fear of academic and social repercussions. We must recognize the challenge we face and respond by cultivating an identity that does not deny our particular experience in order to uphold universal values. We need not renounce who we are in order for others to affirm who they are. That is a bad recipe for interpersonal as well as for intergroup relations. Anti-Semitism is on the rise again. And aside from Iran's existential threats, Far-right politicians spout lethal hatred of Jews. On the far left, toxic anti-Zionist rhetoric is redolent with anti-Semitic sentiment. Groups that proclaim themselves advocates of social justice believe that being inclusive and diverse does not preclude being exclusive of Jews and friends of Israel. Some of you may remember the classic Jewish telegram, "Start worrying, details will follow." We cannot forge an identity based on worry, a faith based on self-doubt, a peoplehood on the defensive. Only by knowing who we are as individuals and as a community can we build our future, despite those who would question and deny us the right. Elie Wiesel tells the story of the rabbi who, in the face of dire opposition and despair, persisted in proclaiming his message of defiance and hope. And when asked why he continued to cry out, knowing that no one listened to him, he responded, "I may not be able to change others, but I will not allow others to change me." We cannot allow those that hate us to make us hateful. The American Jewish poet Charles Reznikoff reminds us of our purposes, of who we are. He writes, "Out of the greatly wronged, a people teaching and doing justice, a generous people. Out of those who met with hate, a people of love, a compassionate people." Judaism has a long and vigorous history of social justice, from the prophets to the labor movement to the civil rights era. We will not let anti-Semitism deter us, nor anti-Zionism silence us. We will not allow prejudice or hatred to define our condition or shape our agenda. We respond to anti-Semitism, the chronic disease of others, from the health and strength of who we are, not the ever-dying people, but Am Olam, the ever-living people. Abba Kovner, poet and partisan leader during the Holocaust, said that the responsibilities of the Jew are three: to remember the past, to live in the present, to trust in the future. And that is my blessing for you. Let us not be afraid of work that cannot be completed. Let us plant trees whose fruit we will not eat, but will be harvested by those who come after us, even as we have reaped the blessings of those who came before us. Rabbi Sandy Eisenberg Sasso, a colleague with whom I am well acquainted, reminds us, all of us are necessary, yet none of us is sufficient. All of us are necessary, none of us is sufficient. I want to end on a personal note. Some of you are familiar that traditional Judaism prescribes a medieval 13-fold credo of faith associated with Maimonides in the 12th century. It's known as the Ani Ma'amin, I believe. I would like to offer you my briefer, fourfold Ani Ma'amin, my credo. It has inspired my work. I have never articulated it as I tried to do now. Ani Ma'amin. I believe that Judaism is neither heavenly ordained nor supernaturally prescribed. Judaism is our memories and our imagination. It is what Jews hope and do. Ani ma'amin. I believe that Judaism is a path to growing intellectually and spiritually, rooted in history, grounded in community, inspired by the wisdom and the moral values of sages and folk. Ani ma'amin. I believe that Judaism is the sacred words, the adornments and practices of a holy tradition that reveal the sacred in our lives and point to the possibilities of a better world. Ani ma'amin. I believe that Judaism is not a finished product or an heirloom from the past. It is our present task and our legacy to the future. This is the faith that has sustained me. This is my blessing for you. Not a faith of exclamation points and absolute certainties, but a faith with question marks and room for doubt. A journey, not a destination. A cooperative venture, not a solitary path. A faith of discipline, of duty and possibility. A way of believing, a way of behaving, a way of belonging, a way of being, a way of becoming. So at this time in my journey, I am reminded of a poem by Wendell Berry. It is entitled, Our Real Work. He writes, "It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And that when we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings." For the last half century, I've known what I have wanted and needed to do. My assistant, Sharon Hine, has told me where to be. And I know Sandy will yet tell me where to be and where to go. I am completing a real journey. A new one will begin. I hope that my mind will continue to be baffled, and I trust that I will yet, with the cantor's indulgence, sing the melody of our people, or at the very least, tell a good pun. Perhaps when the story of my rabbinate is told, it may be titled, Once Upon a Time. Thank you very much.